Rutgers basketball adds four-star wing Bryce Dortch from the 2024 recruiting class on Tuesday. I'm Aaron Brightman. This is my rapid reaction to the news late this afternoon. Reason for the episode coming out so late. Big recruiting win for Steve Pikiell and the coaching staff. Bryce Dortch, right outside the top 100 in terms of the 24/7 composite rankings, 108 nationally, number 25 power forward overall, and also consensus top 5 New England and Massachusetts recruit, both from New England Recruiting Report and several other services, including 24/7 Sports. So this is a huge ad. He plays for Bremer May in Massachusetts, Chestnut Hill. He plays for Mass Rivals, which is an Adidas on the Adidas AAU circuit. So he's not on the Nike EYBL. I think that that's probably part of why he's not ranked as high. But on film, this is a player with a lot of potential. He's a total Steve Pikiell player in terms of his versatility, his length, his ability to defend multiple positions. But what really struck me was how effective he is at getting to the rim. He's a 6'8" guy, but he's very much, he can play in the perimeter. He can beat his man off the dribble. He can get to the rim. He's got really good athleticism, long wingspan, and he can just do a lot of things. And he's a very hard-nosed player. And what I really like about this ad, several things, right? So just talking about the 2024 recruiting class in general, there's several things that Dortch brings. First of all, it's balance. With Lathan Somerville, 6'10", 5-man, who I think is going to be able to be a stretch 5, meaning that he can go outside on the perimeter. He can score from the outside. He's had a tremendous spring and early summer on the AAU circuit. He just was a standout at the Jim Pagnos All-Star Camp last week. And he's really versatile just in terms of his ability to score inside and out. And then you have, of course, the headliner, Ace Bailey, super athletic, can score in every way. He's a rim defender. And then, of course, we're waiting on Dylan Harper, who is now the number 1 recruit, according to 24/7 Sports. Composite, he's still 2, Bailey's 3, but 24/7 has Harper 1, Bailey 2. Doesn't matter. In combination, it would be one heck of a grab for Rutgers. But what I think Dortch does, and Somerville also, is it brings stability not only to the class but to the program in terms of they are most likely 4-year players, right? Harper and Bailey, if all goes well and as projected, they're probably just going to be 1-year players, which is, crazy to say from a Rutgers perspective. We're not used to that. Possibly 2-year players. But what I think the staff has done is they're now adding 2 guys that are going to be, knock on wood, you can never predict the future, especially in college basketball nowadays, but they're high-end 4-star players, but they're also most likely 3-4-year players that will be able to develop in the program and are going to be able to take on huge roles down the road. I think they're both going to have the potential to play right away. But at the same time, look at Kentucky. They have the number 1 class, right? Duke, a lot of these guys, they get the number 1 class, and then 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 leave after 1 year. And then you're kind of starting from scratch year after year. And, the college game is all about experience nowadays, especially with this COVID rule still. You have, 23, 24-year-olds. And that's a whole nother issue we'll talk about in terms of how this class shapes up for translating on the court. But the point is Somerville and now Dortch give you long-term stability. They give you 2 really valuable, versatile, talented players that are hard-nosed players that will play on both ends of the floor, that are really kind of going to be the foundation for the future for this program. So the other thing that I love about this is that the staff has been recruiting Dortch for over 2 years. So this is the long game, right? They played the long game. You had Ace Bailey committed now since the winter. And, we really didn't hear much about Dortch for a while. He's visited multiple times. He took his official a couple weeks ago, but they really stayed in on him for a long time. He took an official to Marquette. He's had offers from Texas A&M, Providence, Seton Hall. His final 3 was actually Virginia Tech and Temple as well. But, I think not being on the EYBL, and I think not every program recruits the New England circuit as well as others, and Rutgers does it really well. And they've been in on Dortch since day one, and they stayed with him. And when Delquan Warren decommitted, boom, Dortch said his official visit 2 days later. And I said at the time, I like the balance with Warren as a defensive first point guard as well. But I think it is apparent now that Harper, if he does come to Rutgers, is going to be the guy with the ball in his hands. He's going to be he's a combo 1-2, but he's going to be the guard. And I think, it's fair to think that maybe that played into Warren's decision to decommit, and adding Dortch instead of Warren actually gives you better balance within the class, right? You have a stretch 5 in Somerville who can bang and rebound inside, score inside, but can also step it out. He can hit from the perimeter. You have Bailey, whose just ceiling is through the roof, ultra athletic 4, who could, listen, he could even play around the perimeter a little bit himself. He doesn't have the best, long range game, but, I'm sure he's going to be more of a 4, but he's so athletic in transition. He's just scary. And then you have now Dortch, who's a true wing and going to be able to, I think, initially check a lot of boxes in terms of just the dirty work and being able to do things that you need players to do to win. And then you have potentially Harper. So the way they've constructed the class, envisioned the class, it's really balanced. But I love the fact that this just shows one thing bad happens, the staff, it doesn't take them long to figure it out. And we saw with Emmanuel Ogbole on Monday, committing JUCO big man. They've been on him for a year. I mean, they had him on campus. He played 1 season at junior college. He didn't start playing basketball until he was 18. And they had him lined up. And if you watch him on film, and I tweeted a video of him from Educational Basketball, which is the program in Nigeria he played with. I mean, he's got some crazy potential. And just in terms of his physical abilities and honing in and his development now as a full-time basketball player, only, a couple years in, his potential is scary too. So, but just the fact that they had him ready to go, they stayed on him the whole time. He had visited throughout the year. The staff just is always prepared. They always have contingencies. I had Nick Brooks on, a former walk-on for Rutgers. He came on my spaces last Friday. Me, myself, and Ant Wright, we talked about after Mulcahy. We had a 2-hour session on Twitter if you didn't see it. And Nick Brooks came on. And he was just like, listen, the staff's going to figure it out. And here we are a few days later, and they're figuring it out. Not because they just figured it out. It's because they've always prepared for things like this. They've always have backup plans for backup plans. Dortch, great example. I think they're actually, I know it's easy to say this now, better off having him versus Warren in terms of just value for the long term and for the balance of the roster. And then Ogbole, it's a little bit of a flyer. He's a raw guy, but he has got the physical tools. He's got the willingness to learn. He had a really good debut at the JUCO level. He's not going to have to come in and do too much next year. He's going to rebound and defend. He'll score off of misses. He's not going to be featured in the offense, but he's going to be able to learn from Cliff for a full season. It's a really good setup. I really like what they've done the last 2 days, but it also shows just how prepared they are, and how they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing as a staff. I just want to look at my notes and make sure I'm not missing anything here. And I think the biggest thing that you can see in terms of a difference in recruit now that Rutgers is getting in Dortch, in Somerville, to a lesser extent to Ogbole, although he has a lot of potential and you see it on film, but he's still very raw. But obviously Harper and Bailey, Griffiths, you're getting recruits that are just better athletes and better better offensive players, and in some cases, much better. Another thing that sticks out to me on film and watching the recruits that they're getting is the fluidity in which they play, and that speaks to talent level. Pico got the most out of a lot of players in terms of buying in defensively and learning how to win defensively and get what you can out of those players on the offensive end. And I've always said I feel like that's why some people get frustrated with the offense, but I've always felt that Pico almost rewarded players at times in terms of being allowed to do certain things on offense because they were so locked in and bought in defensively. And that philosophy is going to work even better when you have more talented players. If they can buy in defensively and then be able to play with freedom with their offensive. And yes, I understand the philosophy needs to be worked a little bit, and I agree. And strategically, based on your strengths, you need to cater to those. I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. What I'm saying is that when you get guys to buy in and then you reward them by giving them freedom on the offensive end, that's when things can really sparkle, especially when you have really talented offensive guys. If you watch tape of Dortch, I mean, he could beat his man off the dribble multiple ways. He is really fluid in how he attacks the rim, gets by defenders, just even by the rim, in terms of grabbing rebounds, his length, his ups. He's just he's a talented player, And Somerville, I mean, if you haven't watched him, I don't know if you have or not, but I mean, his offensive game, he came up kind of as a guard. His father was a kind of a guard wing combo. He's a guy that he can, he dribbles like a guard, but he's 6'10", because he's grown into the player that he is, but he's came up as a guard. So Rutgers they have a different ceiling, a different level of player on the offensive end than they've ever gotten under Steve Pico. And he's stacking them up now in terms of all the different recruits he's getting and all the different offensive strengths that they have. And I think that to me is a huge sign of growth and progress as a program. And I think as a whole, it's been an interesting offseason, right? There's been some downturns. Obviously Cam Spencer and Paul Mulcahy as grad transfers leaving. NIL is certainly a factor, and has caused some instability on the roster. You lost Baden Adongo after Carl Hobbs left. And then you also had Delquan Warren decommit. However, looking at the Warren decommitment, now you plug in Dortch. Maybe it's convenient to say, but I do think that they came out better on the other side of that. In terms of Ndongo, I was really high on Ndongo. I really liked him. He opened the door for Ogbole now. We'll see. It's a long-term kind of comparison to see who works out better. Ogbole is obviously more of a center than Ndongo is more of a kind of a stretch four, probably even play some wing. But that spot opened it up for Ogbole. So we'll see what happens there. And then, listen, I know people are nervous because he only played 11 games last year. He's under 6 foot, but Noah Fernandes, if you watch enough film of him, he is a legit college basketball player. And, the A10 is no joke. And I really think he's going to come in and have a huge season for Rutgers next season. He adds another creator off the dribble. He's a true hybrid point guard in which he can score on his own, but he's also unselfish. He's got a very high assist rate. He's going to benefit the Rutgers offense, whatever the scheme is, whatever the plays being run, like just his natural ability as a point guard and a scorer is going to greatly benefit the Rutgers offense. Then you have Simpson year 2. And then, one person and someone called me on it yesterday, and I've talked about him a bunch, but, Jermichael Davis, we'll see what happens with him, but he's super athletic and he can defend. He's going to be really good in transition. Ace Bailey's longtime friend. Who knows what they're going to get out of him this year? You can't count on him. That was my point in not bringing him up yesterday. You can't count on him in the rotation. But if you look at what Rutgers is building now in the I mean, they are much more athletic. They're going to be able to be more up tempo. Defense, I think, yeah, there's some question marks there, but the fact that you still have Cliff and when he comes back healthy, Mawat Mag, in the paint as rim defenders, I mean, it really doesn't get too much better than that across college basketball. When Mag is at his best and Cliff, the way he developed last year, I mean, that's a huge 4-5 on the defensive end. And I just think that although there's been some reasons for concern and some losses, I guess you could say, in terms of personnel and the recruiting trail, that the ads that they're making are super exciting. And yes, they need more depth, especially in the backcourt. They need to get, probably a grad transfer, someone that's experienced with some size. I think you need to get probably a two guard who could probably play wing as well, 6'5", 6'6". But there's a lot of versatility on the rotation already. So you get best available. But I think you need to get a bigger guard / wing who can score, preferably a shooter. And then I think, because with Fernandez and Simpson, you need more shooters to be able to benefit from their ability to attack the rim. And then I think you look for a defender who could defend multiple positions. But they need to get, I think, 2 more guys out of the portal. I don't think they'll fill all 3 spots. But I think what you're seeing, and my kind of end on this is what a winning program looks like. This is what a sustained winning program looks like. You take some hits, you have some setbacks, but you also notch wins along the way. And everyone wants to focus on the loss of Spencer and Mulcahy and Ndongo, Warren to some extent. But I think the ads of Fernandez, getting Cliff back, let's not forget that getting Cliff back, I saw somebody write, oh, well, it doesn't count because, he's already on the right. He was not on the roster. He was very close to going pro. Very close. If Cliff left, the trajectory for next season would not even be close to what it potentially can be now. You got Cliff back. You added Fernandez early in the offseason, which has also added stability in terms of what the staff has to or doesn't have to do. They haven't had to panic in terms of maybe forcing an addition because they've already had Fernandez in the mix. And then Ogbole, I think Davis is a sleeper. And then now they're just padding. I mean, Lathan Somerville and Bryce Dortch this offseason added to the 24 class along with Ace Bailey. And again, their long-term value to me is the real win here. Bailey and Harper are going to play big minutes. We know that in 24-25. Yes, I really feel confident about Harper being here. Those two, you have Gavin Griffiths is going to be year 2. Derek Simpson is going to be year 3. Antoine Woolfolk is going to be year 3. It's going to be a young team. You need to add. I do think if one of these 2 portal guys they bring in, if one can have multiple years, that's a real value add because you have some more experience to go with the youngsters the following year. But I think that in terms of the overall talent level, the versatility that they're adding, this is how a winning program responds to adversity. And it's not forced. That's the thing. They're not taking huge risks. They're adding guys that they know, that they've evaluated, that they have a plan for, that fit into the plan and fit into the culture. They're not. These are not panicked moves to make up for losses. These are strategic moves that they've had on the table the whole time. And for me, that should be the biggest takeaway. And Bryce Dortch personifies that to me in terms of getting him in, landing him so quickly, how he brings greater balance to the 24 class, how he brings more stability to the program in the long term. And I'm really high on his game. And Rutgers has some really exciting younger guys in the mix for now and in the future. You can't rely on them for this season. And some of them are going to play different roles, varied degrees next season. But if you get Harper, you bring in Bailey. I think Somerville will add right away. I think Dortch potentially is going to probably play behind Gavin Griffiths, but he gives you a guy as a freshman. They could just, hey, go defend that guy, go rebound, go run in transition. I think he could do that from day one. So, hey, listen, Rutgers basketball is in great hands. They're in great shape. It could always be better. I know people are still bummed about how last season ended, but the way they've responded this offseason and taken the hits they've taken, but also gotten the wins they've gotten, I think that people should be very happy and also secure in the fact that this program continues to head in the right direction. I mean, look at college basketball these days. Everyone's suffering attrition of some kind. Everyone's suffering some instability of some kind. And here Rutgers is well positioned for the future. They have a good core for next season. They need to add to it. You need 2 more guys out of the portal, I think. I think you need a guard and a wing, or 2 guards, including a big guard. You need a shooter. You need a defender. But people saying, oh, there's nothing out there. I mean, there's still over 1,000 guys in the portal. Are there high-end guarantee, highly rated options out there? No. Are there plenty of guys at the mid-major and low-major level that can play college basketball at a high level and can help a team like Rutgers in the Big Ten as a contributor? Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's lots of names out there. I know they're working on stuff. I feel very good about where they are. I hope you do too. And today is just a clear sign. It's just another part of the puzzle that shows that they have an end game and they know where this thing is headed. And they're adding, remember where the talent level on this roster was 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Even on, no disrespect to the guys that left out of the portal at the end of the bench from last season, but the talent level for next season, although they're thin, is increased. The versatility has increased. This program is getting better. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful.